Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to program your own basic trading bot. Knowing how to code will surely help you get through this video, but even if you don't know how to code, you should be able to follow along well enough and grasp the basic concepts. I'm going to go over how to use bots as well, so non-coders will still find valuable information in this video. First of all, a little disclaimer. The bot we're building is for demonstration purposes only. Please don't try using this bot for real. It's very simple and will not make you any significant money. Let this bot be a starting point for learning how to build bots that will make you a lot more money. And when those bots are raking in the profits, go ahead and send them to me as a thank you. I'm going to use Python for this simple bot, and it's going to connect to the Poloniex cryptocurrency exchange. Poloniex has a great API for this kind of thing, and even a Python wrapper already written, so we'll be able to get up and running really quickly. Also, I've gone ahead and put all the code I write in this video on GitHub, so you can just watch the video for now and easily grab all the code later from the link in the description of this video. Our simple bot is going to trade based on a currency's moving average. To wrap your mind around how moving averages work, check out my video on moving averages that should pop up on a card here, or you can look in this video's description for a link to it. So here's the strategy our bot is going to trade with. When the price on the chart drops below the moving average, we're going to be in a potential buy position. When the price starts increasing again, we're going to enter a buy position. Also, when the price on the chart rises above the moving average, we're going to be in a potential sell position. When the price turns around and starts dropping, we're going to enter a sell position. One more time. This trading strategy is absolute garbage and will not make you money. Don't trade using it. However, it's simple enough that we can get the code up and running quickly. And then at the end of the video, we'll look at some ways we can easily tweak that strategy to get it to go from garbage to pretty decent. So to get started, let's look at the components of our simple bot. Here's the bare minimum of what we need to do. We need the bot to operate based on variables we give it so that we can pass in settings basically to the script. We need the bot to give us some kind of feedback. We're just going to be printing out to the command line. We need the bot to connect to the Poloniex exchange and use its API. We need the bot to calculate a moving average as it goes. We need the bot to be able to backtest historical data for testing purposes. Then finally, we need the bot to actually make trades for us. That's it. Let's get started. First, let's take a look at the bare bones container we're going to be writing this code within. It's just a loop that repeats every so many seconds. Pretty basic stuff. Now, once again, this is a very stripped down, very basic example of a trading bot. I am well aware that there are much better ways to do time loops and run service-like scripts in Python, but I'll leave the upgrading basic stuff like that as an exercise to the viewer. I'm just trying to get this up and running quickly and simply in order to focus on the guts of the bot. So our first requirement is that we should be able to pass settings into the bot. This is pretty standard Python stuff. I'm not going to go through it in too much detail. On line 8, we're defining two flags. One is -h and one is -p. .h is the standard help feature, which tells you what flags the application accepts, and p is a flag that we're using to set the period. Now, for backtesting using the Poloniex API, we're going to need to adhere to their set periods of 300, 900, 1800, 7200, 14,400, 86,400, and those are all in seconds. So we'll go ahead and enforce that right from the start. If you pass in one of the acceptable periods, the period gets set to that. If not, it spits out an error message and exits. Now, most of the time, software developers typically design scripts and applications to fail silently and things like that. Errors should be logged, and the software should try to figure out what to do next based on its defaults or logic or something like that. I never do that with bots. There's potentially real money at stake here. If there is ever even the slightest hint that something may be wrong or even not as expected, stop everything immediately and shut the party down. Now, our second thing we need the bot to do is give us some kind of feedback. We've already kind of done this one along the way, but let's start creating the stub of the kind of output we're really going to see. We've added some more real information to the print statement on line 26, simply adding a timestamp and showing what the period is set to. Now here's an example of this code being run and the kind of feedback we can expect. Just for the purposes of demonstration, I added a 10-second period option. So you can see, so far so good, working pretty much as expected. Our third step is to connect to the Poloniex Exchange API. Once again, this one is pretty straightforward as well. Poloniex has graciously offered a Python wrapper for access to their API. I'll have that in the repo on GitHub as well, so you won't have to go out and find it yourself. But all we have to do is download it and put it in the same directory as our bot, and then we can simply import it. Then we can connect using our API keys. Now you have to get your API keys through your Poloniex account. The keys will go in here. I've obviously obscured mine so you guys can't steal everything I have on Poloniex. And then finally, we will be querying information from the exchange. Here I'm just getting the latest price of whatever currency pair we provide on the command line. You can see I've added another option up here for you to set a currency pair, or it's BTC XML by default. So this is then getting the last price of that from the API call, and then lastly printing it out to the command line for us to see. So go ahead and test what we have so far. Looks like it's working pretty much as expected. Once again, I just added the 10-second period for demonstration purposes. And then I was able to pass in BTC XMR, that's Bitcoin versus Monero. And every 10 seconds, it's given us the price, the last price for that currency pair. Everything seems to be working as expected. Let's move on to the next step. All right, now we're finally starting to get to the interesting stuff. So as this bot is going, we want to calculate the moving average. Once again, here's a link to my video about how moving averages work. We're just doing an arithmetic moving average, which takes the previous X number of prices, calculates the average between them, and then that's our moving average. So you can see here around line 42, we start that process. So basically we're just dumping all of the last pair price, the current prices, into a Python list. Then we are calculating the based on the last few, truncating that to the relevant data, and then just simply getting an average from it and displaying that on the command line. I've also built in a way to pass in on the command line the number of data points you want to use in your moving average, which is typically referred to as the period of the moving average, but that's kind of confusing because we're already using the term period for the length of time in our loop. So now, once again, we're getting the expected output when we run this script. You'll notice we did add the other setting for the number of data points we want our moving average to consider. So as expected, at the first data point, we should not have a moving average because there aren't any data points previous, so there's no way to calculate that. Then after that, it starts calculating it, and it looks like it's working. Here we're at a point where the price has finally changed and the moving average changed accordingly. So I think we're good to go here. Let's move on to the next step. All right, so now it's time we try this with some real data. We're actually going to look at historical data first for backtesting. The Poloniex API makes this really, really simple. We can get the data with one API query, and that's the return chart data query here. We send it in a currency pair, the start time for the data, the end time for the data, and the period. Now the start and end time have to be in Unix timestamps. I actually just keep a file handy for timestamps so I can copy paste. So what we do is we assume that if a start time is passed in on the command line, then that means this run of the bot, we're looking at historical data. So we'll go ahead and retrieve that historical data and iterate over that historical data instead of the real-time data that we would normally go over. Now, one thing I've done as well is in here, I only do that sleep for the loop if we're getting real-time data. If it's looking at historical data, then let's just process it all as fast as we can. Our bot should process all the historical data between April 1st and April 2nd of this year with a period of 1800 seconds. So cross your fingers and let's try this out. Boom, there it goes. I didn't speed up that video or anything. It was that quick. We tested our bot over a period of 24 hours. We got all the values with a period of 1800 and calculated a moving average for that period. Let's look at the numbers. The numbers look pretty good. This all seems good to me. Let's move on to the next step. All right, so here we are. Finally, we're getting to the guts of the bot, the logic that actually decides when we enter a trade. It's actually pretty straightforward. We went over the strategy we're using at the beginning of the video. If the price of whatever currency we're looking at rises above the moving average and then decreases in value, we go ahead and put in a sell order. If it goes the other way, if it goes below the moving average and then starts moving back up, we put in a buy order. And then in either of those situations, once the price crosses back over the moving average, we exit the trade. So I've also put in some code here to guarantee we're only in one trade at a time. Again, I'm just doing that because this is a simple example and I don't want the output to get all messy. In future bots, we'll be able to do multiple trades at the same time. But you'll notice I actually haven't put in the code for the buy or sell orders yet. Let's go ahead and run a test first where it just simply prints out this is where a sell would happen or this is where a buy would happen. Look at the numbers and see if the bot is behaving how we want to before we actually try to make some trades. All right, let's go ahead and test this on some historical data first, see what kind of output we get. All right, so you can see right away it would have placed a sell order here. It would have exited that trade here, and another sell order, another exit, sell order, exit, sell order, and then our time frame ended. So you can see the bot's working as expected if you look at the numbers. But it doesn't look like we would have actually made any money with this bot because these are kind of garbage positions. And then finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, how we actually place the trades on the Poloniex cryptocurrency exchange. Using their Python wrapper, it's really simple. The names of the functions are sell, that's not closing the position, that's creating a sell order, or a buy order. You got to track the order number, that's the return item from these calls, and then when the bot deems it's time to exit the trade, you just call the cancel function. It's really that simple. I'm not actually going to show you an example of this running because, like I said, this isn't a very good bot and I don't want to lose money for the sake of a YouTube video. So that's it. Feel free to check out the GitHub for all this code and use it as the basis for your own bots. After looking at the back testing of this strategy, it's clear that this bot is a bit too rigid to actually make money. It exits positions at the faintest hint of price changing directions, which exited some of our positions much too early. See if you can devise a system to get around that defect. Here's a hint. You could probably try to add a second moving average that's much shorter than our existing moving average. That could make our strategy a lot less impulsive. Also, it's always important to protect yourself. This bot has nothing even remotely resembling a stop loss or anything like that. The focus of the next video will be building out that functionality in this bot. We'll see you then, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions.